I want to talk a bit about linebackers in college because what I'm beginning to understand, especially at the NFL level, is when you can find good traditional linebackers, you are finding a dying breed of football player. Mostly because football has become much more about being able to move the ball downfield vertically. And you need linebackers that are versatile, and most of those guys can play safety, but many of them don't play the will or the Mike the way that we've traditionally known the will or the Mike. I'm bringing that up because Alex Grinch once said that playing my middle linebacker against some of the offenses that Oklahoma faces is the toughest job on a football field because of the advent of run-pass option, right? Which you could say was actually way back when somebody started running bootleg, they had run-pass option. But it's different in this way because the kids are so much better at running it. They're so much better at mesh points. They're so much better at reading leverages. They're so much better at sight adjustments at the line of scrimmage. And they're so much better at just moving through what used to be a clanky procedure. Now it's just smooth. It's either put it in the running back's stomach, pull it, and run, or throw it. And the middle linebacker can read that play and be right and be wrong at the same time. Because as soon as you see that running back take that football, or appear to take that football, you come downhill to make a play. But as soon as that ball leaves that running back's hands, you're wrong and the middle of the field is exposed. All while, your job as a linebacker first is to stop the run and make the run fit. So we've seen more Isaiah Simmons types that we've wanted at the next level, and we've seen more edge rushers at the next level. We have not seen a whole bunch of great Mikes and Wills, right? Which is one of the reasons why Kenneth Murray Jr. has an opportunity to be the first defensive player drafted in the first round at Oklahoma since Gerald McCoy. And that was over 10 years ago. Because he plays a position of need. And even with his deficiencies in reading the offense, his athleticism, and quite frankly, his last 3 years of playing football have been at a position of need, right? If you can play will linebacker at the next level, you're going to be on the football field because they feel they can move you to Mike on third down situations. You can play in the middle of the field. You got more speed than a traditional Mike. And at Murray's size, 6'2", 240, 4.52 in the 40-yard dash, you also can see what kind of physical specimen he is. But what does Oklahoma have and what does college football have behind him? Well, at OU, you're going to hope DaShaun White is ready to carry the load, and I think that he is. I think he's going to be the next great linebacker at Oklahoma, and I believe that he's going to be the best one since Curtis Lofton when he gets an opportunity to actually lead the defense next season. But behind him, Brian Asamoah was a converted running back. He kind of played both ways coming out of high school. And then Levi Draper's gone. He's at Arkansas. But Shane Witter is there. And he was an early enrollee, and I think he's going to benefit from winter training, strength and conditioning, being in meetings, and even the one practice that they were able to have during spring practice before quarantine, right? Because he's got really great speed, but he's also played all over the football field on both sides. Some tight end, some wildcat quarterback, some wide receiver, some linebacker, and some safety. Also led me to this idea of how many linebackers, especially in the middle, have just been linebackers throughout high school and all the way up through college. This is one of the reasons why I was also so bullish on Levi Draper for so long. He has the most experience playing linebacker of any of those guys, right? Especially at that level. So to lose him, I think, is a blow, even if Riley and Grinch won't admit it. But you could also make an argument, if he was so good, RJ, why didn't he play a lot last year? Well, he did on special teams, but I understand your point, and I'll take it. Now, you look at LSU, who's going to a 4-3 defense, and now you are beginning to understand how they're choosing to adapt to what they see is a proliferation of passing offenses in the SEC, right? Because seeing Marcel Brooks next to Jabril Cox and even Damon Clark was not something I was expecting to see in 2020. But that's the most likely lineup for LSU next year. And I think it's also interesting because they lost so much, as many people know, but they're going to ask the back end of their defense to be even more solid than it has been in years past. And that's saying a lot because Derek Stingley Jr., Grant Delpit were on one side, and Christian Fulton, Jacoby Stevens were on the other. And then you still had a fifth guy that you could bring in from time to time because they dropped Jacoby Stevens down to edge rush on some passing situations. So seeing how Bo Pelini chooses to adapt that is going to be interesting. But also at Alabama, you're going to see the next great wave of linebackers, if you haven't already. They're going to return Dylan Moses, who's coming off of an injury, who we all believe was outstanding in 2018 and was one of the best recruits of the last decade when he committed and signed with Alabama. But he's going to be helped and flanked by Christian Harris and Shane Lee, who each have a year now of playing linebacker a year before they were supposed to play linebacker. I mean, even going back a couple of years, Nick Saban wanted to keep Mack Wilson on the squad because he knew how important that position was to the health of Alabama football. And looking even at what Baylor was able to do last year, thinking, man, there wasn't enough said about what Blake Lynch was doing for them. And that's a guy that was a safety that they could drop down. Or even at Oklahoma State, looking at Malcolm Rodriguez, who was a safety that they asked to drop down and played Calvin Bundage's position and probably make sure that Bundage never gets that position back because the kid from Wagner was just that good. So this hybrid safety spot that is becoming a will linebacker spot, I think it's interesting in that you look at the next level, and I wonder, what does Evan Weaver hold for the NFL coming out of Cal, who is a WWE superstar if ever there was one. So as one of my favorite stories about a cocky kid, Tim DeRuyter walked into Cal's football offices to be the defensive coordinator because Cal's defense was sorry. Evan Weaver, who was the best player on that sorry defense, went into Tim DeRuyter's office one day, introduced himself and said, you know, coach, I'm the best player here. To which Tim DeRuyter says, cool, that's like being All-State in Rhode Island. There's a reason why we're here, son. But that sort of moxie and that belief in self propelled Cal's defense to be pretty doggone good last year, and Evan Weaver, once again, was the best on it. Zach Baum at Wisconsin was leading one of the best defenses in the country all year long, right? But we don't talk about Weaver or Baum as being those guys that are going to be drafted in the first round or even the second round because they don't have the same sort of athletic traits as Isaiah Simmons or Kenneth Murray Jr., even as they have a lot of the same output. But those are also traditional Mikes, whereas Simmons slots to wherever you want to play him on a defense, quite honestly. If he doesn't fit on your defense is broken, not him. And Murray, as I've said over and over again, is just that fast, is just that athletic, and just has that many snaps at that position that you can't overlook it. And when you look around some of these defenses in the NFL and you identify which one of them is outstanding, you're always going to pick the one where the linebacking play is elite. If not the best linebackers in the country, their play is elite. I'm interested to see what the Patriots look like without a guy like Kyle Van Noy or Jamie Collins, right? I understand that what made the Niners defense so good was, they had a great front four, but they also had an awesome linebacking core behind them. And you continue to do that all around football. If you can find a good Mike and a good Will, you're going to have a good defense. Even as we sometimes put a little too much emphasis on interior line play, as we put a little too much emphasis on edge rushers, the guys in the middle that are able to do a million things at a moment's notice, I think is fascinating and a great way to look at football. And especially in a sport where we depend so much on the kiddos' decisions that impact others' decisions on the football field, right? One of the toughest things to learn as a linebacker, at least for me, when I had to play that position, was just getting rid of my false steps. You know, because you get happy feet back there thinking that you see something. when really identify it and then make one decision in one direction. You don't want to be late either, right? Which is the happy feet mentality. But if your first step is going in the direction of the play or of where the football is going to be, you're going to be a step ahead of anybody else that's trying to make that play, and you're going to give freedom to the safeties and the other linebackers in pursuit to go and do their jobs better. I think it's important to continue to look at the defense as a wheel, but as the linebackers in the middle as the spoke. Because as those guys play, as those guys move on the football field, you can see how the defense is supposed to move, even as we watch the safeties, right? Because the safeties will tell you what the defense is trying to do. The linebackers will tell you what the defense is doing. Mayberry, does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does.
Okay. Because I'm trying to make sure that I keep to the point here of watching the linebacker play. So continue to watch the linebacker play. Continue to look at the spoke in the middle of the wheel. Also, watch the safeties to let you know what the defense is doing. If they're backpedaling, tells you a lot. If they're coming downhill, tells you a lot. If you see single high, tells you a lot. Two safeties high, also a lot. You can even get really into it and watch how the corners are playing their technique. Right? And that's getting to understand defensive football. And I've always tried to look at defensive football as a thing to attack when I need to change that thinking and look at defensive football as the thing doing the attacking and the offense as the thing doing the counterpunching, which I know is counterintuitive to how we actually have learned to watch football, but it is the way to watch football philosophy play out.